to make this consequent with the sustainable tourism. Our specific strategy is, of course, strengthening local capacity, generate as much as possible high-quality tourism services. One of the preferred strategies, this homestay tourism. The people who goes to these areas, they don't necessarily go to a classical or conventional hotel. They go to local houses or local people. Appropriate technology for tourism infrastructure, resource efficiency in hotel, and marketing and sale of tourism through tourism operators and local municipality. This is also very important to be sure to guarantee that the product, that the tourism strategy has a market and somebody wants to buy. In this sense, we use all these internet tools. If you go to this webpage, you will see our projects, PhotoTrip and TripAdvisor. We try to use all these modern tools to put this rural and many times very isolated village into the global circuit of tourism. And we, as a National Cleaner Production Center, have a strong activity to promote voluntary actions in the private sector, and this is one initiative that has a connection with tourism. We are launching a carbon neutral label for agro exporters. For example, a farmer that wants to export a banana or asparagus to Europe or to other north country, sometimes they are required to prove that it is a carbon neutral product, and they can compensate the carbon emissions through forestry and reforestry projects, and we are putting these forestry and reforestry projects together with these touristic areas, so that the enterprise that wants to compensate the carbon emissions, he can compensate his emissions in a touristic protected area, and we are working this with two companies. One, Control Union, which is a global certification company, and the ICRAF, which is a World Agroforestry Center. They measure and they calculate the area, the forest that is needed to compensate the carbon footprint of the company. Challenge for the future: lack of basic service in rural areas. We many times are thinking only on tourism, but we must realize that people have other problems, like very basic, like water and sanitation, communication, energy, healthcare, education, etc. And this not only reduce the competitiveness of this town or this village, but also increase the cost for training or for new green jobs candidates. So this is a challenge for the future to join tourism activities into local development initiatives. The cost of greening tourism, as I mentioned, this carbon neutral tourism or low carbon tourism may increase the cost, or may be a barrier for a private enterprise. So we need to guarantee that the market is willing to pay this new green product. It has been mentioned also, change of economic indicators to measure the development of people. Development of people is not only increasing their salary, it's very important indicator, but also to measure migration, loss of cultural heritage, not only the good and also the bad impacts of tourism. Recommendations: stakeholders integration and networking with a common objective. We have found that government, NGOs, and private sector, they not always, they don't work together, they don't have a communication mechanism, so they don't they don't put the efforts in a single goal. Some strategy for private sector, like a corporate social responsibility, trust fund for environmental services and environmental labels. We have a strong mining activity and a strong petro activity, and in many cases, private companies are creating trust fund so that these trust fund are used for local development, and this is almost always a voluntary a way to finance local development. Diversify rural tourism activities with other local development priorities like agriculture, agro-industry, forestry, fish farming, etc. Policy advice to governments move from command and control regulations. It's very difficult for our governments to enforce the law, to put ecological policeman or to put a inspector in every corner of the country. So we believe more in market instruments and market tools like fair trade, organic agriculture, corporate social responsibility, low carbon, etc. So we combine these compulsory these legal requirements with voluntary initiatives based on market demand and not only on legal requirements. Well, thank you. This is and I will be glad to answer any questions if it's planned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcos, for these excellent examples and for telling the story, as we heard in the morning also, with all these nice photos. I feel like going to Peru already. We are now coming to the session for questions. Please, we have 2 questions here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer C. from Fair Trade Tourism South Africa. Thank you to all the panelists for a very interesting discussion. Harold Goodwin, I have 2 points I'd like you to reflect on further for me. Thank you for a very provocative presentation. On the issue of job creation, would you agree with the statement that the tourism industry is a fairly poor employer? And if we look at labor standards within tourism, there's quite a lot that one could say needs to be done around issues of decent work, paying living wages, and so forth. And in South Africa, we're having quite a vigorous debate at the moment, which boils down to the question, is any job better than no job at all? And I think the answer to the question depends on who you are. Trade unions, for example, are putting pressure on policymakers to up the standards, to protect people who already have jobs. Private sector is responding that this makes labor market too inflexible, they won't hire more people, and so forth. So how do we get around this? Because surely it's not one or the other, but I do think we need to assist the private sector to increase the quality of work and the benefits to workers, but at the same time without creating barriers to people trying to enter the workforce. And the second point is you appear to be rather critical of the focus on enabling poor people to own economic assets and community ownership of infrastructure or lodges and so forth. And I'm just wondering if there are exceptions to this, if you can reflect where this is an effective strategy of poverty alleviation. We have many elephants in South Africa, and they're not all white. Some examples are working around enabling black people, people in rural communities to own tourism products. But one could also argue that the amount of time and resources that goes into structuring these deals and creating these opportunities does not enable them to be replicated. So is this focus on asset ownership, is it inappropriate? Is it misguided? Is there something we can be doing to make this work better? Thank you.
Jennifer, I fear that the answer to both your questions is the rather unsatisfactory. It all depends. And I'm the first to recognise that that's probably an unsatisfactory answer. But if we take the one that hurt me most in terms of your question, am I in favour of the poor owning assets? Of course I'm in favour of the poor owning assets. What I'm not in favour of is the poor being led into debt with some naive assumption that that means they own the asset. And I don't think that actually happens in South Africa, but it does happen in a lot of the places that I've worked in and evaluated projects. I think anything we can do that enables the poor, the economically poor, to get assets is highly desirable, but we need to worry very much when that occurs at the cost of actually having gone into debt. And in that sense, they don't become owners, they become indebted. So whilst they may in theory own the asset, in fact, they're in debt. And that's my main concern about it. Whether it's the most appropriate strategy in any particular circumstance, I think it does depend on the particular circumstance. And we need a lot more careful and honest evaluation of the outcome of different strategies. But if I may, let me illustrate that with an example from Bolivia, where an international NGO helped a community to build a lodge, which meant that they got the funding for the materials, and the community donated its time. That lodge, I think, has only ever had about 3 people stay at it. After the international NGO left, the community realized that the real asset they had was the walk up the river to their village, and they've been selling, the last time I saw the figures, 1,000 walking trips a year up that river as a guided walk, and they sell them lunch when they get to the top, but the lodge is of no use to them at all. It's a pity in a way that they were misled, and they didn't actually borrow the money for the lodge on that occasion, but they did put an awful lot of labour into it for which they got no return. On your first question about employment, it's obviously a very difficult question to answer, and I've often been criticised for favouring employment for the economically poor in tourism, and I share the concern that exists in a lot of NGOs and certainly in some trade unions as well about the level of wages in the sector. And I learnt very early on how difficult that is, because when I did the work in Zimbabwe in '95, I came back with a story about 12 young women who got jobs as chambermaids in a lodge, and that didn't go down very well with the young women at DFID to whom I was reporting. They thought it was terrible that these young women had got jobs as chambermaids. I reflected afterwards that these young women no longer carried water twice a day, and that they didn't work in the sun. They had rather nice paid salaried jobs. So that was fine, wasn't it? And then I reflected a bit more as I got older, and particularly as I got older, and thought, what did it now feel like for their fathers, that their daughters were earning more in a month than they would earn in a whole year? And that's what I mean about it actually being a very complicated question. It seems to me that all we can do is try to get people the best possible jobs that we can in tourism. And to be honest, many of the jobs which are available in tourism, whilst development workers may not want to do them, beat the hell out of standing in the sun, hoeing a field all day, which may be the effective choice for many.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next question, please?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me
please.
opportunity for have the question. I'm from Ministry of Tourism, Cambodia. First of all, I would like to share share experience a little bit regarding to the poverty reduction in tourism. Actually, in our country, there are 4 top tourism destinations which sustainable tourism can share and can get a benefit for the local people. Unfortunately, one top tourism destination in Siem Reap, you may know, is a World Heritage site. Actually, this area, there are a lot of the tourists. Last year, we got 2.8 international visitors, and most of them are from Vietnam and Korean. Actually, the local people, they did not get any profit according to the UNDP report. This area is become poorer in the country. So in this connection, I would like to ask you, what is strategy, what is the action to be improved the local livelihood for poverty reduction? Come next, my question regarding to our speaker from Peru. I would like to ask you or highlight a little bit in terms of the green tourism, green job tourism is a new one for us. There are a lot of things that you have highlighted and definition. However, I would like to include, is there any acceptable, is the farmer tourism include or green job tourism or not? Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Who would like to start answering the first question? Marco? Okay, please.
We have to answer two questions. Are we developing sustainable tourism, and are we creating green jobs? What is the difference of these two questions against the, let's say, the conventional tourism and the conventional and the traditional job? First of all, the tourism that we promote is sustainable tourism because takes care in the environment, the social dimension, as well as the economical dimension. We try to implement the sustainable development concept in the practice, in the real life, in the day-to-day life. So, for example, our farmers they don't use chemicals. They are organic farmers. That's why we call it eco-gourmet movement. The fish factory also, they have some label for organic and clean production, and the hotels have respect to the environment. So we consider these people working around these tourism circuits green jobs. Also, we have touristic guides that they have in their message to the to the foreign people, the environmental consideration in the message. So the difference is that we implement sustainable tourism, and these people employed around this, we name them green jobs. It has to be mentioned that these people, they have their activities, and what we provide is an extra income, an extra economical activity, and we improve their income and their original activity. So this is our definition of green job. And so that these people is not in extreme poverty. Trying to answer the first question, we are not working with extreme poverty people. We are working with people that they have some sort of income. They are micro enterprises to some extent. So the process to train them to move from a farm from a traditional, let's say, chemical farming to an organic farm is easier because he is a farmer and he is used to work in the market of agriculture.
Thank you very much, Marco. Luigi, would you like to address the first one?
Yeah, just to comment, I think you raised a point of which I think the same Cambodian authorities are aware of the highly dependent international tourism at this stage on the Siem Reap, the Angkor Wat region, which I think provides over 50% or even more of international tourists. What I know that there are attempts to diversify the strategy. In October